And it's 10 a.m. right here in Lagos, Nigeria. Good morning, good evening, wherever in the world you're watching from. It's Business Morning live from Channels HQ. I'm Ladi Williams. It's great to have you join us. Let's take a look at what's happening with the markets now. Starting with the oil market, we see oil prices fell for a fourth session today, heading for its biggest weekly loss in 5 weeks on worries about the prospect of steep interest rate hikes in the United States, slowing growth and hitting fuel demand. You see Brent there dipped by 48 cents to $81.11 a barrel, while the U.S. WTI crude futures down 60 cents this morning at $75.12 a barrel. Watching that $70 mark at this time for WTI, expectations of ongoing rate hikes in the world's largest economy and in Europe have clouded the global growth outlook and driven both crude benchmarks down more than 5.5% so far this week, in the worst drop since early February. Well, that market was really hammered this week. We're interested to see if we can see maybe some kind of recovery sometime next week. And back here in Nigeria, Nigeria's crude oil output climbed to its highest level in over a year last month. And that's according to latest oil production status report by the Upstream Petroleum Regulatory Commission. The data from the NUPRC mentions that the country's crude production rose to 1.3 million barrels within February, up from 1.26 million barrels recorded in January, which marks an increase of about 48,154 barrels on a month-on-month comparison. At the same time, the output is higher by 39% when compared with 937,766 barrels produced in September last year in the midst of crude oil theft in the country. Even though some good news, it is quite sad that oil prices are going down at this time when our oil production is kind of inching up. We'll see if we can match it up at some point. Let's look at the grain market now. Chicago wheat futures edged higher yesterday after falling to their lowest in 18 months, with comments from Russia cooling expectations of a Black Sea deal to ship Ukrainian grains, soybeans and corn rose in support from a further reduction in estimates for Argentina's drought-ravaged crops. The U.S. wheat market has been under pressure from Russian export competition and expectations that a wartime grain corridor from Ukraine will be extended beyond this month, increasing available global supplies. But the Kremlin said yesterday that a lot of questions remained over the Black Sea grain deal, and that there were currently no plans for talks between President Vladimir Putin and UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres. Everyone looking out for that grain deal. Hopefully it's signed as soon as possible. And still in the spirit of celebrating women, the First Bank of Nigeria Limited is joining the rest of the world to celebrate the 2023 International Women's Day. The bank is dedicating the month of March to the celebration of women across the world with a call for all to embrace equity. Take a listen.
A fun sip and paint session to kick off the celebration of the International Women's Day event organized by First Bank. Led by the bank's First Women Network, the ceremony convenes the theme, Embrace Equity, and women working in the bank are lauded for their remarkable achievements in the society.
It's an opportunity for us to celebrate ourselves and appreciate each other for our tireless work and dedication to make meaningful contributions to the world. The unique role we play in shaping the society through our personal and professional achievements is profound.
Thank you so much, Daddy.
The Managing Director and Chief Executive Officer of First Bank reinforces the objective of the First Women Network, which is to help them succeed.
The First Bank Women Network was started March 2019, and the objective was very simple. How do we create an enabling environment that allows the ladies who have chosen to pursue career with First Bank to be the best that they can be?
How are you going to make a difference in Lagos State, in Nigeria?
Conversations from guest speakers and panel sessions highlight opportunities for women to get tools to bridge the gender digital divide and First Bank's role in promoting gender equality.
As a world, we really must make sure that we're getting the other 50% to contribute. Let's assume that we're 50% across genders. It's so very important that we take all that inclusion to be really who we can be. If we're to unleash our potential, imagine unleashing the 50% who perhaps we're not contributing as much. Once we do that, we'll see increase in our GDP, we'll see increase in the contribution of diversity.
First Bank has dedicated the month of March to celebrate women across the world and their achievements over the years.
Welcome back. Now to our first conversation today. Obviously, tomorrow was supposed to be the D-Day for the governorship and state assembly elections, but the Independent National Electoral Commission announced the postponement of the election, citing a logistics crisis stemming from BVA's configuration and transportation. But what is the cost of this postponement to Africa's biggest economy? Let's talk to Mr. Paul Alaje now, senior economist, SPM Professionals, join us via Zoom. Good morning. Great to have you. Good morning, Mr. Alaje.
Good morning, and thank you so very much for having me.
Fantastic. It's great to have you. So I know you're not in Nigeria right now, but, right here, most Nigerians were hoping we could be, done with the elections and get on with our lives. And we know INEC, budgeted about 355 billion naira for this exercise for the 2023 election. But first, let's talk about the budget now. How do you see it? It's an increase, obviously, from the last time.
Well, there is an unprecedented increase from the last time. The increase is over 60% compared to what we had in 2019, 61.37%. That was the increase INEC added to 2019 budget to give 2023 budget. That one. On the second hand, the approximately 34.57% of the budget was just to buy equipment, devices, including givers that has been alleged not to load, from polling units, electoral devices. We also have not less than 7.79% on honorarium, lecturers, ad hoc staff, those who had come to support INEC. 7.54% was on logistics, was budgeted on logistics, and this one, of course, had been released. And for the voting material, talking about ballot papers, 6.78% was budgeted. So if you ask me, I think this amount of money budgeted for INEC had sufficient money to carry out a proper and organized elections without any form of delay. All the monies I've considered, we've looked at all the monies that have been budgeted for, and the ones that INEC have received, we believe that this election should have been very smooth, should have been very fair, without any form of delays at all, as most of the budgetary allocations were for the purpose. But when we also look at this volume, a lot of people might be wondering, why do we have to increase between 2019 to 2023 the election budget by 61.37%? I'll tell you that when you look at exchange rate, a number of things that we don't look at, we just look at figures. We are Nigerians, but when you look at the machine, accreditation equipment, devices that INEC is using, they are not made in Nigeria. Average cost per dollar, and I will put it as dollar because most of these equipment are imported. For 2023, according to INEC report, INEC project electoral project plan, it was at $5.39 per voter. For 2019, it was at 6.24 per voter. So the thing is, we have had more people expected in this election. INEC had projected about 100 million people for 2023 election, even though we are not seeing up to that number. But it's a safe corridor for the commission to ensure that people really come out in their numbers. In fact, this budget also made provision for about 8% of possible rerun between two major political parties if that had happened. And that was 8.89, approximately 9%, was what INEC had made provision for.
Looking at where we are with the elections now and the amount earmarked budgeted for the elections, Do you think we're getting value for money?
The truth is that we are not getting value for money. You've seen that 2 or 3 major political parties ran to court to say that uploading information was done or was not done. I think INEC would have helped us to put rest to all of these if the promises based on the available devices was done. And I can tell you that, do we have a correct device? I will tell you yes. Was it possible that this information would have been made available? Yes, they should have been made available. Now, INEC has caused some level of confusion, even though substantially we have a president-elect in the person of Senator Bola Ahmed Tinubu is the president-elect. It has been declared. That's what the law says. And I'm happy that some other candidate has not turned Nigeria into turmoil. They have chosen the path of honor to go to court to inspect the material and also to challenge the victory of Senator Tinubu in court. I think that is the right thing to do rather than bringing down the country. So I must salute people that have taken such decision. But more importantly, do we have value for this election? Do we have value for money that has been allotted? The answer is a big no. I don't think we have value for monies. I think INEC should be more accountable, and INEC should also give reasons why this has not been done. I will give you one of the excuses that have been given time and again by INEC. It's been logistics, apart from the device uploading, which is relatively new because of 2023 election and adoption of partial technology into the process. Before now, what we are seeing is technology. What we have seen is that logistics. You see, I think INEC by now should have partnered with private sector, not association. Private sector, private or organized private sector within the industry, logistic industry. And INEC would have held people responsible. You would have held, I don't want to mention the name of different logistic companies we have in Nigeria, but we have a lot of them that are doing well for themselves. There could even be synergy between 3, 4, 5, depending on the strength in a region. But unfortunately, INEC has not been able to work with these people. If they have done that, there would have been no insinuation of maybe INEC has collaboration with a group or INEC has special interest, which is what many people have been talking about. But I hope that in the coming elections, INEC will pre-qualify privately owned logistic company. And I can tell you that this will really save Nigeria for postponing election on logistic basis. And on the device basis, I strongly believe, even though court has granted INEC the permission to configure, of course, that does not mean that the previous result to be erased, the previous result will be valid. If you have your computer, I don't think before you want to, because maybe you have something typed on Word document and you want to configure, you want to install CorelDRAW, what document you have done will suddenly disappear. That's not it. So I think our people should put their mind to rest. I'm happy peace is reigning in Nigeria. We should allow the process to continue, and eventually, I believe we will have a great nation.
Yeah, and talking about election materials now, you did mention, some of these materials, we have to import them. And I do remember, some of the printing materials. The INEC chairman did promise to print, most of them right here in Nigeria. I don't know how far, they went with that. But, looking at some of these devices, obviously, we don't have the technology to produce them. What do we do?
Well, we don't have the technology to produce them, and we need to start considering the implication of giving 34.57% of over 3 billion out just for one election. This is just for one election. Now, for the next election, some of the devices might still be used. Some of them might have been retired. Technology might have even phased them out. We need to understand that the world is not waiting for us. Nigeria must appreciate knowledge. We must encourage young people within the space of ICT, within technology, for their apps and, more importantly, their devices to be embraced by government. And this will send a lot of signal to private sector. We cannot continue to lose hard-earned effects to importation of what is possible, what could be done in Nigeria. And I tell you, there are countries in the world today, including where I am now, there are countries in the world today that have made manufacturers to establish within their territory If not, they've made policy environment without saying it directly. There are policies that will be very difficult and things that will be very difficult for that nationality to achieve. Nigeria imports most of our television. Look at our number. Look at different homes. The kind of growth we are seeing in Nigeria. Can it be heard that most of the television we watch in Nigeria up till now are still being almost 100% imported? What would be wrong if we say that, yes, you can pre-produce, but coupling and finishing must be done in Nigeria? And that is the part to develop. I hope authority will listen and start looking at how do we make Nigeria to have the kind of size, the kind of economic size that is required for the population. And I hope that in the coming period, we'll start seeing some of these changes.
All right, let's try and count the costs now of the postponement. What will it cost Nigeria economically, with this postponement of governorship elections and state assembly elections?
Well, it's going to cost Nigerians a lot. It's going to cost time. It's also going to cost financial resources. Already, several hotels might have been booked for weddings on the 25th. It's now being cancelled. Potential income has been shifted. Some flights might have even been cancelled, and people are not really settled as to what the next plan will be. And also locally, those that want to do their business, that make arrangement, contracts, with all the confidence INEC gave a lot of Nigerians, the election will not be postponed. So there's a lot of disruption that has happened because of this 1 week postponement of election. And because people want to live their life, people also want to participate in the electoral process. This could even discourage people that might want to come out. But I'm calling on all Nigerians because I'm going, of course, going to be around. I was around for presidential election in Nigeria. And of course, with this postponement, I will also be in Nigeria to ensure that I carry out my civic responsibility and my duty as a citizen of Nigeria.
And what do you think can be done to create some kind of buffer, for this cost for the economy?
Well, what I think INEC should do is to, first of all, make sure this kind of plan is made much earlier so that people plan. Again, Nigerians, we also need to have plan B, especially during election here. You know that there is an agency of government, National Population Commission, is also planning population census, whether it will be locked down, which I think is not necessary, or not, is another conversation entirely. So I think government should also try and provide some support to people, which may include logistics movement and so many other support for the Nigerian people.
All right, let's look at other matters now in the economy. In the first quarter now, we've had to deal with demonetization program by the CBN, elections, fuel kills. How will all of this play into the inflation story for February? And can the MPC rein in inflation at this rate? Really? Can they really rein in inflation?
Well, it's going to be very tough because if you go to the street of Abuja, Lagos, Port Harcourt, many major cities in Nigeria, you see queue for fuel. People are trying to buy fuel, so they are losing man-hour. They are also buying parallel market at relatively higher rates. We have not seen major reduction in FX, which of course is accountable for some of our imports, where when FX is not readily available for people to buy and the time it takes to process through banks. So that is another challenge. The third challenge that we may have regarding all of this is even election postponement business that should have been completed. And if you look at MPC in January, the report for inflation showed that inflation even increased. So when you are looking at what inflation will be, I'm not seeing a significant reduction if there will be any, but we may just have a minor increase in inflation because already it's high at over 21%. So if we are not living over to, we might still be within the corridor of 21% or a bit upper part of 22%. But I hope that authority will need to do something about it. MPC continue to use monetary tools to rake in inflation that is not solely a monetary function. And I think fiscal authority will understand that in advanced economies, there are no traditional rules. Traditional role for monetary authority will be to have stability, price stability, exchange rate stability. But when you look at what is causing inflation, you see imports, which means we need to talk to trade authority. In Nigeria, in my opinion, I think trade authority have been reduced to SME of some sort. rather than looking at what is happening in international trade, which is the effective conversation I think trade authority must have to actually help this country. The most of the FX challenges that we have seen that central bank is struggling and authority are struggling to deal with, it is because of little or no export, even though we continue to import. For instance, our import bill within a quarter for antibiotics is over 300 billion naira. And this is not my figure, this is according to the National Bureau of Statistics. You might want to check what the trade report looks like. And I hope that one day we are going to have a president that will look at our trade reports and call those that have been hired either in civil service or those that have been hired by political appointment, then ask questions until we are able to have that leader that can interpret reports coming out from the National Bureau of Statistics among other agencies. Honestly, it's going to be a tough moment for Nigeria. So for me, MPC will try, but even if they make decision in the next MPC meeting, I don't think the impact will be felt until the next 4 to 6 months.
And definitely we have another activity that's going to cost us a lot of money, and that's talking about the population census. It's supposed to happen in 2023, and the federal government, they've hinted at not being able to afford this. It's supposed to cost about 869 billion naira. Is there a cheaper way to carry out this census?
Well, I think to carry out the census in Nigeria, we might need to use electronic means. It's important for us to use electronic means to carry out the census. And in doing this, I think Nigeria must understand that the world is fast becoming a global village. In the UAE, there is what we call the UAE Pass, where all citizens download apps and they do their facial biometrics, they do their finger biometrics. It costs the country really lower than, much lower than asking people to come one by one. The logistics, the time, and everything involved is crazy. But if we have apps and we adopt technology and optimize it, I think it will go a long way. But if we don't, I can tell you that some parts of Nigeria are highly overestimated in terms of population, and some are also underestimated in terms of population. For us to have the almost near accurate population, it's important we have another population census, which is of course overdue long time ago. But in doing this, using traditional method will just not work because our population has advanced and we need to adopt technology to spend almost half of what you have in the budget, because I think we can make do with half of what the commission is saying we need to do if right technology is adopted. And I hope that authorities that are listening will check other countries and see what apps or what device they can use to really help us, both facial and physical. Because if you send human being to be going from one point or the other, how do you even know that the person is a Nigerian? But if you adopt technology, it's going to go a long way to help us from where we are right now.
I believe technology can make it cheaper, because that's quite a huge amount we're seeing there. But thank you so much, Mr. Paul Alaje, Senior Economist, SPM Professionals. We'll leave it there now. Thank you so much for your perspective today.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right, so after the break, we'll be drilling down on open banking in Nigeria as the Central Bank of Nigeria released guidelines earlier this week. We'll find out more after the break. To stay with us. Welcome back. So the Central Bank of Nigeria has issued guidelines for open banking in Nigeria in a circular dated March 7, 2023. The Apex Bank saying that the guidelines would create greater access to customer-focused data sharing between banks and third-party firms. For analysis now, we have Muyiwa Yojimi, CEO, Consumetrics, join us via Zoom. Great to have you on the show. Good morning.
Good morning.
So first, yes, good to have you. So first of all, help us understand what open banking is.
Okay, so I mean, open banking is not new. The CBN has attempted, to launch all of this initiative since 2020, 2021. In practical terms, is sharing customer permitted data between banks and third-party firms. So it's information sharing is supposed to enable creation of customer-focused products and services. So it's the use of artificial intelligence to force banks to make the data they have on their customers shareable, between each other and with third parties.
Because definitely some people might think it's just leaving the banking hall open for them to go in and out, but it's definitely different from that. But looking at this whole idea now, are customers, do customers have anything to worry about, with this open banking?
Okay, so the open banking, the difference between the traditional banking system and the open banking system, nothing much will change. Two critical things are going to be introduced. So with the enablement of sharing data, okay, either fintech companies or companies with new innovations are able to share their products and services. So the typical traditional banking system still stays, but of course, what we now have is that there is a sharing of information of consumers' data. So the benefit to choose from a wide range of products and services is there. The opportunity to be able to get very good rates in terms of deposits, okay, cashback programs. I know there are some very big supermarket chains that would like to offer shopping deals. And so they would want to, have a measure of understanding of consumer spend to be able to do that. So it would avail, some benefits, but of course, it does come with its own issues.
And what are those issues? Because I've heard some people talk about can the banks just share the information without permission from the customers? There's also the aspect of risk there. Is my data safe being transferred from one party to another?
Yeah, so I think one thing is quite important, and the CBN has done a good job of rolling out, particularly the guidelines, to guide this framework. As far as the issues are there. Even as we speak today, we have our BVN, virtually in different space, right? Banks still share and they link, okay, technically already, our BVNs for those of us that have multiple banks. So that linking of information is there. We've always been exposed to this risk. But again, it's just going to be plunging us further for consumers to be aware of the fact that private information will be shared, much more widely. And then that speaks to data protection. I would have also thought that on the heels of this directive, I think it would come, there would be some note from the Data Protection, Data Privacy Bureau for Nigeria, for the purposes of also strengthening whatever gaps exist between the CBN directive and the existing frameworks that the Data Privacy for Nigeria dictates. I mean, it's a genuine fair. Sharing data personally, I get very excited about prospect of personalized service. But again, banks, accounts, your documentations, where you've been to, what you've spent your money on, private data is inherent private, I mean, like Joe Biden said sometimes, don't tell me what you value, show me your budget and I'll tell you what you value, right? So you spend your money on your priorities. So where that information is shared, okay, with channels that you are not able to have control of, it's a worry. Another issue is the risk management framework for these platforms, either for the financial institutions themselves, because compliance is expensive. And ordinarily, as we speak today, where we stand today, in an era where typical transfers, take a lot of effort nowadays, to get, especially with all of the things that is happening right now in terms of cash, cashless, and whatever. Layer on top of that to have open banking. There will be consumer fear around. Look, what are the frameworks? How expedient? What is the speed? What is the amount of care that is going to be given? The issue of cyber security and governance practices is also there. I mean, yes, innovation is good. It comes with a lot of its own challenges. But again, consumers will want to see the governance practices. You do a simple transaction, it's not reversed in weeks. Okay, so now if you have an open banking system, there must be some level of assurances. There must be some level beyond commerce. Okay, part of the advantage is that consumers are also able to make choices. So it's not as if this system is going to be forced on, on consumers generally. After all, even in the UK, you find that for about 5 years now, they've only had close to 7 million active users of open banking power technology, out of their bankable population, right? So
so at the end of the day, you have a choice to
start now.
You have a choice to either use it or not.
You have a choice to use it or not.
Okay,
and then importantly, your consent as a consumer has to be obtained. The guidelines provide this. So it's not as if we're just going to move into that space all of a sudden. There will be appropriate consents to be able to get into that system.
Okay, so let's look at the benefits now. Do the benefits outweigh the risk?
So, like every process, ahead of beginning a journey, for some climes, if you take Germany, if you take some of these other climes, they've started their open banking system for quite a long time, and they've been able to perfect it. One very important thing that assists in helping consumers or measure the success of any initiative at all is their level of education. If you take the level of education in the other clients that are operating open banking, versus what we have in Nigeria, it's a challenge. And that's where consumer education is quite important. There's need for consumer education, as it would entail a new implementation journey. It's a lot, it's a phase, but again, indirectly, some of these third parties, particularly fintechs, are already offering the services, can already do these things. And most importantly, this is one thing that I would say, in answering your question, I think the benefits is almost equal or better than, the negatives. What's important is the privacy issue. And if the privacy issue, for example, I'll tell you. So in terms of who the banking implementation entity is, in the CBN directive, there is supposed to be a registry, okay? Now, in the customer journey, and I'm talking about implementation now, even for the third parties or for the fintech companies and what have you, I think the consent process should be controlled by the entity. And that's talking about the CBN registry now, the open banking registry, as against each bank or each company having their own control and owning their own customer journey. This is debatable, and I'll leave that to the technology experts. But I think what is important, and because data is king right now, I wouldn't want, a consumer would not want his information either to be tradable, either to be used, as a kind of humorous lampoon or something against such consumers at some point in time.
Yeah, data is hot commodity right now. But how do you see, this open banking? How do you see it impacting Nigeria's financial system? How do you see it impacting regulation also?
Okay, so in terms of, the system generally, the impact is one very glaring impact is the fact that the multiple layer of knowing your customer is going to be demystified. Okay, so if you find out that you get into some transactions, or you want to leave the banking or the financial institution to do some of the transactions, take mortgage, for example. When you pick that item, they want to do your KYC again, and that's where you see a consumer says, oh, I'll fill all of those forms, I'll do all of these things, and what have you. I mean, this is what part of open banking system does. They already, will just tell you to fill in the minimum details, and then it eliminates that KYC process, and then they are able to also understand your appetite. So take, for example, one example that comes readily home, okay, is the fact that you want to take a mortgage, right? And you find out that you're not a regular income earner, but they can see actually that you do certain businesses, right? So that level of information, there's ability to measure the risk appetite from your history. Today, as we speak, I don't know, Ladi, how many of the bank accounts you have. Some people, just as we used to have 2, 3 different lines, telephone lines, some people have 3, 4, 5, 10 bank accounts for different purposes, of course. But you can imagine the number of years that you have in terms of transactional journey on those respective bank accounts. So it would help. On the regulatory end, I think it's important, by and large, for there to be a sync within the regulatory space. I would imagine, for example, that the Open Banking Registry will have a handshake with the Data Privacy Bureau, the Data Privacy Agency, in Nigeria. I would imagine that the constitution of that registry, okay, is expanded in a manner that would ensure that the right fits are actually there. So there are some of the things, that are not typically also altogether fine, with the resolution framework,
right?
That the CBN has also set, and I think that should, for participants to have a 2-3 layer of resolving conflicts or resolving any issues before it can be escalated by the consumer to the CBN, that's too long a time. If you don't get this resolved in 14 days, then you can bring it to CBN. Okay, that's like a cut and paste for me. If we're going to do open banking, then we should be able to live up to the fact that the consumer would also want real-time, on-time resolution to whatever issue he has. He has ordered something from Amazon, or he has ordered something from anywhere, and then there is supposed to be a gateway, or there has to be some refund, or there has to be some issues. It shouldn't take 14 days, or perhaps it was supposed to be deducted with 10 naira and it was deducted with 12 naira. It shouldn't take 14 days. We should have a very firm process around this. Technology has improved, and indeed the fintech industry has come to also, assist the financial institutions. And I think all of these would help in terms of expanding commerce, and also, give consumers some level of choice, which of course is a hallmark of consumer protection.
Yeah, because it does get difficult when you're trying to open your account and you have to fill all those KYC forms from scratch, put your passport photographs all over again, and some transactions that also have to do with proof of funds. I believe this will also help. Well, it's still early days. We'll keep tracking to see the progress of open banking in Nigeria. Thank you so much, Mr. Muyiwa Yojimi, CEO, Consumetrics. It was great having your perspective.
Thank you very much.
All right, so yeah, we're talking consumer data protection there with the open banking process starting in Nigeria. So let's look at the markets now, and we have Ini with the details now. So it is looking like at some point in the future you won't have to fill all those KYC.
Yeah, that'll be really great news, you know, because sometimes it can get really cumbersome, you know, because even we're talking about census now, and people are asking, oh, I have my data with immigration for my passport, I have it for my driver's license, I have it in the bank. Isn't there a way?
All over the place.
It's just all over the place, and we were hoping that NIMSI, Identity Management, will help us to coordinate all of this, and I'll be able to track who gets access to my data, you know, but it seems that's just a little bit away from us now.
We try to put some of those easy ways aside and try to use some processes that are very manual and expensive.
Because we know that recently the federal government had come to ask for donation in cash and in kind.
I don't know if you've donated, have you? No?
I was waiting for you, actually,
okay,
Ladi.
maybe after.
You should. Anyway, let's do the market now. And the market ended in the green yesterday. Talking about the equities market, marginal though at 0.04%. A lot of struggle brought this up. The market cap is still at 30 trillion naira, 30.4. I hope we don't go lower than that. If we look at some of the drivers, the volume, we saw that this was 3.09% for value. Deals was quite low yesterday, while volume was about 100% more than the previous day at 311.48%. Driving in on that, we'll see that for the counters, our lovely banking, the most liquid counter, could not hold up, and so it's down with marginal, so not too heartbreaking. We would say consumer goods also was in the green. Industrial as well. Dangote Cement really drove that. Insurance. Oil and gas was actually the news of yesterday. We saw corn oil losing more than 9%, really close to 10%, which is the maximum that can be lost again on the market. I wonder what investors were doing. Perhaps some information around corn oil might have brought that up, but we'll get to know in the coming days. So let's go to the next slide now, and we head out of the equities market now to the unlisted market. The NASD is still struggling to get back to that 1 trillion naira. We see that it's now at 945. We've gone lower than this, so let's be glad for some little winnings. It is up 0.08% for yesterday. And those who drove the unlisted market yesterday, if we could have the next slide there you have volume, value at 7.47 million to 11 deals, and stocks traded worth 5. And the volume at 379. We saw, let's look at the stocks that were that got most of investors' attention there. There you see top trades for yesterday for the unlisted market. Transcore, GT Core, and Zenith Bank. Wherever we see those fugas, they always move market and attract a lot of investment. So one way, either buying interest or sell off, one way or the other. The gainers for that market were Transcore for yesterday, looking really good at almost 9% there. Royal X and Champion also were on that gainers list. So of course, it's always good to look at the other side too. So we have gainers, we also have the losers for yesterday. If we could have that slide come in through now. All right, since we're not having that. So let's move oh, there you are. All right, this is for the NASD market. NIPCO PLC had a 7.69% increase in its price at the close of trade. Let's go to the fixed income market now, if I can have the slide, to see how that market did. We do know that lending rate contracted by 14 basis points. That's almost 11% as at yesterday. The NTB is still trading really quietly. Perhaps investors are still holding their breath, but we do know that a lot of activity is expected here because of the attention of the federal government. Now let's have Caleb Alimi, who is a fixed income dealer with Providence Bank, join us now to shed more light on what's going on in the fixed income space. Hi, Caleb. Good morning.
Good morning, Will.
Well,
good morning, Nini.
Thank you. The fixed income doesn't seem to be as vibrant as the equities at this time. Are we still holding our breath for the election? We thought that the bigger one was over, and so life was almost back to normal, and yields will start going up.
We actually have activities, but we have activities more on the NTB space. You know, there was an auction earlier this week on Wednesday, where there was a NTB auction on Wednesday where the DMO offered about 224 billion worth of bills, but ended up selling 324 billion at a maximum rate of 10% for the 1 year NTB. So we see a lot of activity there. You know, like I said, the auction was also about 3 times oversubscribed, and which saw why they could allocate a little more there than what they had on offer. So that's where most of the activity is in the fixed income space, on the NTB market.
So I do know that that savings bond of the federal government closes today. How's that going?
The savings bond is often well received by retail investors. I think it's been offered at around 9 and 10% for the 2-year and the 3-year maturities respectively. That is often well subscribed by retail investors as well.
All right, but we're expecting inflation numbers, and we have seen some prediction that it might taper. You know, is that affecting investors' sentiment right there?
Inflation has always not really affected investor sentiments. What has affected investor sentiments is the availability of options. What are the options? What are the investment options available to investors? That is often what drives their appetite. Inflation doesn't play a direct relationship. Why? Because we've always had negative real returns for a very long time, and so investors are already used to that.
All right. One of these days, we'll be able to capture or predict our economy based on some of those macroeconomic factors, which is what is being done in other developed countries. Thank you so much, Caleb Alimi, fixed income dealer with Providence Bank.
Thank you for having me, Ini.
All right, just to run through the numbers, the federal government bonds yesterday had 21 deals worth 14.22 billion naira, and we do see that the April 2049, people are really investing ahead, you know, holding up there for the profit in the future. We have the treasury bonds also, if we could have that, the treasury bonds for how it fared yesterday. All right, seems I won't be getting that. But Ladi, that's how it is, or it was for the market yesterday.
Exactly.
You know that federal government bonds was really savings bond.
Yeah, we talked about that, and we're exploring, you know, that. But it seems like if you didn't get it early enough,
Then, yeah, exactly. And also because the process has still not been mechanized. You still have to do the manual filling of forms and things like that. And
I wish I could just go on my phone and just, you know.
Which is what it's supposed to be.
That would have made a lot of sense. Anyway, we're looking out for today's close on the NGX.
Exactly.
Thank you so much.
All right, thanks. I'll give you the midday.
Oh yeah, intraday.
At 1:30.
Hope it's not marginal red or green. We hope we get direction.
We'll close in the green.
And close in the green. Fantastic.
All right,
thank God it's Friday. All right, now let's look at other markets now. We see it's a bloodbath, literally, in the crypto market at this point. Seeing the sentiment in the market now at fear. I did know that fear was nearing in this market, and we're there now. Big drop from neutral level. 34 points, that's what we have this morning, showing that traders are really afraid right now in this market and might not be inclined to put money right now because, as it is, it's a bloodbath with the U.S. Fed there talking about raising rates even more going forward, and we see that impacting even U.S. markets, even to the crypto markets. So it seems it's a risk-off sentiment we're seeing right now. Let's look at the market cap. Lost that $1 trillion level there. Now it's 931 billion, down 6.66%, a big drop overnight there. Volume traded also up 54.66% on the sell-offs we see in the market. Bitcoin dominance also inching downward there at 0.74%. Let's look at the price of Bitcoin this morning, $19,948. Did lose that $20,000 support, lost the $21,000 support there. Big drop, 8.21. Not seeing this level in a while. It's more like all the gains from January wiped off in a single breath there. Volume traded $36.31 billion. Let's look at Ethereum. That wasn't left out of the bloodbath again. We saw it there. Lost the 1.6 level, lost the 1,500 level, $1,414. Also down 8%. This morning, we see volume traded $10.97 billion, all on sell-offs we're seeing in the markets now. Let's bring in Olumide Adesina, now financial market analyst. Hello, Olumide. Good morning.
Hello, Ladi. Thanks for having me. It's a Red Friday.
Yeah, quite a bloody Friday. It's a bloodbath in this market. I don't know if you were expecting this, but it seems it's the Fed again. And obviously, we've seen the U.S. Fed. They've been talking about, you know, not going so high with interest rate hikes. They're also talking now quite hawkish, you know, at this point. We've seen the markets react. All the gains from January wiped off this market.
Yeah, just like you rightly reiterated, the U.S. Fed's hawkish sentiment, you know, when he was talking to Congress, really escalated outflows in the crypto market. And we saw Bitcoin breaking below $22,000 support level. But it's fair to also look at the fact that there are also systemic concerns across the crypto market. We're seeing the fact that there was a New York lawsuit categorizing many crypto assets as securities, and you understand the effect that will have on many crypto exchanges. Also, the fact that many financial institutions look to have stress concerns. You know, we spoke about Silvergate voluntary liquidation, and right now we are talking about Silicon Valley Bank that has a market cap ranking of about 16th biggest in the United States, also having systemic concerns. That really triggered sell-offs yesterday, and we saw it across risky assets. It got so bad that Bitcoin had to break below $20,000 support level, and that really triggered bearish concerns across other risky assets. Mimi coins down more than 12%, like you rightly said, and the cascade of losses kept on going till the early hours of this morning. And you know, with the Ripple market open, we also saw that bank stocks in many assets also are suffering record losses. So that's interesting, as really kept sell-offs in the crypto markets on the eye. But coming back home, you know, the fact that Nigerians are more concerned about the future of the crypto industry in Africa's all-important market tells you interesting signs. But, you know, recent statements by the governor of Lagos State about boosting the crypto market enthusiasm around the industry was not really a good sell, because many Nigerians understand that the industry really play much on the CBN and Security Exchange Commission dynamics. You know, the finance bill where tax related issues concerning crypto transactions will come to play, and also the fact that crypto assets are not yet legal tender and the Security Exchange Commission tags them as securities. The president-elect will definitely have much to say about it. So the dynamics right now in the crypto market largely is very parabolic, and that's why we're seeing the market breaking below $1 trillion market valuation.
Right, it's quite interesting, you know, what's happening in this market now. But quickly, before I let you go, Olumide, what are you seeing for next week? Some kind of recovery?
The job report will be the jury here. You know, job report coming out in some hours' time. Definitely, we'll see a strong job report. It's going to be a bad weekend for the crypto market. But a weak job report from the United States definitely will give the bulls some support to break back above the $20,000 support level.
It's quite incredible how bad economic news turns out to be good news for the central bank of the U.S. Fed there. But if you get good economic news now, it's like it's bad for the market. Anyway, we'll keep watching out for those job market reports in the U.S. Later today. Thank you so much, Olumide Adesina, financial market analyst.
Thank you for having me. Yeah, thank you.
All right, so yeah, Olumide not seeing much recovery maybe next week, because there's still a lot to look forward to in the market there. Kava there, and the top Guinness counter 3.02%. So we're seeing a lean top Guinness counter this morning. If we flip over to the losers counter, we see double-digit losses with Huobi token there, the biggest loser on the top 100 list there, 19.50%, about 20% down, $3.89. So we see it's also Double-digit losses going on with CFX. That's had a good run. One of the China tokens there. Dash also down 12.20%. So as I said, it is a bloodbath today in the crypto market, and most global equities markets right now seems it's risk off, making this Friday seem like not the one traders are really happy about. Anyway, that's the show today. That's it for the markets. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget, you can join us at 1:30 for Business Incorporated for more updates and developments in the world of business. And you can watch this again on our YouTube channel. Flip over to YouTube, search for Channels Television, check our videos, and you can watch all our productions. Thank you for watching. Bye for now.